Imagine waking up one morning, opening the news and reading, "The last Bitcoin has been mined." What happens next? A crash? A crisis? Or the biggest price explosion in history? Today I'm going to tell you what most crypto channels won't. Bitcoin isn't just a coin. It's the world's first digital currency with a mathematically hard cap supply. And that one detail changes everything. Unlike the dollar, the euro, or the yen, Bitcoin cannot be printed. Ever. Its maximum supply was written into the code back in 2009, when an anonymous developer known as Satoshi Nakamoto launched the network. That number is 21 million coins. For context, the Federal Reserve printed roughly 40% of all US dollars that have ever existed just in 2020 and 2021 alone. With Bitcoin, that's simply impossible by design. As of today, over 19.7 million Bitcoin have already been mined. That's more than 93% of the total supply. Less than 7% remains. And every 4 years, something called a halving cuts the mining reward in half, meaning new coins enter circulation slower and slower over time. By current projections, the final Bitcoin will be mined around the year 2140. That's over 100 years from now, but the market is already reacting to this scarcity. And to understand why, we need to look at how the system actually works. Think of a giant public ledger. It records every single Bitcoin transaction ever made, who sent what, to whom and when. This ledger is open and anyone in the world can verify it. But someone has to maintain it, add new entries, and protect it from fraud. That's what miners do. A miner is a person or company with powerful specialized computers. These machines solve complex mathematical puzzles to add a new block of transactions to the ledger. The first one to solve the puzzle gets rewarded with newly created Bitcoin. Right now, that reward is 3.125 Bitcoin per block. After the next halving, it drops to 1.5625, and so on until it eventually reaches zero. But here's the key question. If the reward goes to zero, why would miners keep working at all? This is where it gets really interesting. Every Bitcoin transaction comes with a fee. When you send Bitcoin to someone, you pay a small amount to the miners who processed your transaction. Right now, those fees are relatively small, because miners are already earning the block reward as their main income. But in the future, that changes completely. Once the block reward disappears entirely, transaction fees become the only source of income for miners. And for the system to keep running, those fees need to be large enough to cover the cost of electricity, hardware, and maintenance. Will that actually work? It all comes down to one factor: how actively people are using Bitcoin. If billions of people are making Bitcoin transactions every single day, 100 years from now, even tiny fees add up to massive revenue for miners. The system stays healthy. But if Bitcoin remains a niche asset used by only a few million people, the system could weaken. Fewer miners means less security, and less security means more vulnerability. That's why what's happening with Bitcoin adoption right now matters so much for its long-term future. Now let's talk about what most people actually care about: the price. There's a basic law of economics. When supply is limited and demand grows, price goes up. Always. No exceptions. Gold is expensive not because it's shiny. It's expensive because there's not much of it. Diamonds, same thing. Rare paintings, same thing. Bitcoin is the world's first digitally scarce asset. And unlike gold, its scarcity isn't natural. It's mathematically guaranteed. No government can change that code. Not the Federal Reserve, not Congress, not even the developers themselves. No vote, no executive order, no bailout can ever create more Bitcoin beyond 21 million. With every halving, the number of new coins entering circulation gets cut in half. And every year, more coins are permanently lost. People forget wallet passwords, pass away without sharing access, or simply lose their devices. Some estimates suggest that 3 to 4 million Bitcoin are already gone forever, and that number keeps growing. That means the real circulating supply of Bitcoin is already well below 21 million. And it keeps shrinking. With rising demand against a shrinking supply, that's a powerful long-term case for price appreciation. It's exactly why many serious investors don't see Bitcoin as an everyday currency. They see it as digital gold, a way to store wealth over decades. The halving is a programmed event that happens every 210,000 blocks, roughly once every 4 years. After each halving, the block reward gets cut in half. In 2009, it was 50 Bitcoin per block. In 2012, it dropped to 25. In 2016, 12.5. In 2020, and 6.25. In 2024, 3.125. And in 2028, it will be 1.15625, all the way down to zero. Here's what's important. After each of the previous halvings, Bitcoin's price increased significantly. Not immediately, usually within 6 to 18 months, but the pattern repeated every single time. Why? Because the supply of new coins drops sharply, while demand stays the same or grows. That's basic economics on Tihomon. And it works. This isn't a guarantee of future gains. The market is unpredictable, but understanding this mechanism is essential for anyone who takes crypto seriously. Now, can anyone actually break the system? I get this question a lot, and it's a fair one. What if hackers attack the network? What if governments ban Bitcoin? What if someone finds a bug in the code? On the first point, the Bitcoin network is one of the most secure in the world. To attack it, you need to control more than 51% of the entire network's computing power. Right now, that would require more electricity than some entire countries produce. It's practically impossible. Governments can ban Bitcoin transactions within their own borders. China has done it multiple times, but Bitcoin kept running anyway. Because the network is decentralized, there's no single server to shut down, no headquarters to raid, no CEO to arrest. Bugs in the code? Theoretically possible. But Bitcoin's code is open source, and thousands of developers around the world are constantly reviewing it. In over 15 years of operation, there has never been a critical failure in the core protocol. Risks exist, and they always do in crypto. But Bitcoin's architecture was specifically designed to be as resilient as possible against every kind of threat. Nobody knows for certain what Bitcoin will look like in 100 years. But analysts generally talk about two main scenarios. In the first one, Bitcoin becomes a global standard. It's used by billions of people worldwide. It becomes a reserve asset, digital gold in the global economy. Transaction fees remain stable because of massive daily volume. Miners keep running. The system thrives. Some economists even compare this to Bitcoin, eventually replacing gold as the world's go-to store of value. In the second scenario, Bitcoin stays a niche asset. Crypto never goes truly mainstream. Bitcoin is used by a relatively small number of people. Transaction fees aren't enough to sustain miners. Network power shrinks. Security weakens over time. Between these two extremes, there are plenty of middle ground scenarios. But the core truth remains. Bitcoin's future is directly tied to how widely it gets adopted by society. That's why everything happening right now matters so much. Institutional investment, Bitcoin ETFs, regulatory clarity, major companies adding it to their balance sheets. Every one of those developments is a piece of the puzzle. Let's bring it all together. First, Bitcoin has a hard cap of 21 million coins. That's permanent, written into the code, and cannot be changed. Second, when all coins are mined, the system doesn't break. Miners shift to earning transaction fees instead of block rewards. Third, limited supply against growing demand is a foundational argument for long-term price appreciation. Fourth, the halving is the key mechanism that gradually reduces new supply on and historically has preceded major price movements. And fifth, the most important point, a fixed supply isn't Bitcoin's weakness, it's its greatest strength. It's what separates Bitcoin from the dollar, the euro, or any other currency that a central bank can print without limit. Money that can't be inflated away. That's a revolutionary idea. And for the first time in human history, it actually exists. While the dollar loses purchasing power year after year, Bitcoin stays mathematically unchanged. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button. It really does make a difference. Subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Every week I break down complex crypto topics in plain English. Drop your questions in the comments. I read every single one. See you in the next one.